Welcome to the Contrarians, and tonight's topic: hate the production, love the album. Got a big panel here tonight. Martin is here as well, so let's get started. Let's do it. Hey, welcome to the Contrarians, and tonight we've got a great topic, a topic that I can't even start to even say, but I'm going to try to say it. We're looking at albums that you despite, even though it's got bad, wait a minute. See, I knew I'd screw it up, but I'm not going to edit this. We're going to do it again.
Good.
Albums you like despite its bad or questionable production.
Yeah.
So everybody knows, everybody's got some albums that they go, oh, I love this record, but boy, does it sound horrible. Or, oh, I love this record, but boy, does it sound like 1986. Well, we're going to see what everyone has. Everybody has three choices. I guess we can just go around. We're going to go an hour, and we'll see where we end up. So I want to welcome Keith, Andee, the Elder, and of course, Martin and myself. Butch may join us. He's having a little bit of camera trouble. So once Butch is here, we're just going to keep going. So Butch can catch up. All right. So I'm going to go as I see it. Keith, Andee, Martin, and then the Elder, and then we'll bring Butch in. All right. Keith, go ahead. Give us your first pick, and we'll just go 1-1. There's no,
Okay.
Just go, Keith.
Okay, I'll take position number one, and I'll get the big bad boy out of the way here. It's talked about over and over and over, and the fanatics clamor for a remix of it, and that's "Kisses Hotter Than Hell." That one has been lauded for years. Actually, all three of the first batch of records usually get slammed pretty hard, but "Hotter Than Hell" gets the worst of it, and it is certainly a murky, muddy mess. That they actually wanted it that way. They wanted that thicker sound, and they certainly got it. So that's my first pick. I don't think I need to say a whole lot more about it. If you know it, you know the record, you know what it sounds like, and I think that one is out of when we say bad production, that is bad production.
But for some reason, though, I wouldn't want it any other way because I think it fits the music, Keith.
After
and
50
it's murky
years,
and
it's what we know.
Yeah.
It's the one that we know. I would not want to hear a remix.
I always refer to that as like a Kiss's Black Sabbath sounding album because it's got that, like you said, that kind of muddy, doomy kind of bassy sort of production that maybe would be found on a Black Sabbath album. So that's what I always kind of refer to that album as like Kiss Sabbath sort of.
You know, the thing
you could use positive adjectives and say that it's powerful sounding. It totally is that, right?
Mm-hmm. But why does it have such a drastic change in sound from the first album, which is the same production team? I don't understand.
Because they specifically wanted that thicker, heavier sound.
Did Peter Criss say, I want crappy drums? Is that what he said?
I also heard that maybe, Ben, there was some studio issues maybe going on that may have contributed to that as well.
I
can't remember for sure.
That's where budget or lack of budget kind of probably plays into a lot of that. Production in the first part of the 70s versus production in the second half of the 70s is so different. Martin, I can recall you saying somewhere along the line not too long ago, in that first period of 70s, there wasn't that much heaviness going on. You know what I mean? That first Kiss record was really heavy compared to a lot of what was going on. So, and there was no budget. I mean, they had the guys from Dust come over and produce the record. Were they producers just because they had a little bit of experience making a record? Casablanca had no money, and that's why those first three, by the time they did Dress to Kill, Neil Bogart did it himself. I mean, he was a bubblegum producer. What was his label? I can't.
Buddha.
Buddha. I can picture it.
Buddha.
Think of it. So which if you listen to Dress to Kill, it has that the most
very thin
sounding,
very thin sounding. And
yeah,
I remember, I think it was one of the Kiss books, Peter Criss said Neil Bogart was smoking a lot of weed too.
Sure was doing more than that.
Well, yeah, but he said that was like a constant. He remembers like constantly, and that being a thing in the studio when Neil Bogart was producing the album was he's smoking a lot of pot.
Anyway, Kiss, Hotter Than Hell, that's a given. So, all right, let's keep going. Andee, welcome to the show. What you got? What's your first pick?
Okay, I'm going to go to the world of hardcore punk. The early 80s, you could put any band into this bucket, basically. None of them were on major labels, and they mostly self-produced or didn't produce. They just kind of recorded their albums wherever they could for as cheaply as possible over used recording tape during, graveyard shift recording sessions in dingy basements. So you could put anything by the Misfits with Glenn Danzig into this bucket. You could put Minor Threat, the early Bad Brains stuff. Bad Brains did get some good productions later where they teamed up with Rick Ocasek and so on. So you got to hear the kind of, the potential of a good recording of this kind of band over time. But I'm going to talk about Black Flag. And I figured I'd pick Damage. This is the most famous album. It's the first one with Rollins. This is kind of like a compilation. It's the pre-Rollins stuff, which is my favorite Black Flag stuff. And this, oddly enough, sounds a little better than Damaged. Damaged was engineered by a guy named Spot. And I think all the Black Flag albums were recorded by this guy. And it sounds like the band just recorded live off the floor. And it's all kind of mono, and it's kind of claustrophobic sounding and muddy. And, there's supposedly 2 guitar players in this lineup of the band, but I'm damned if I can hear a second guitarist on half the songs. So you could say, well, does this actually hurt the album, or does it actually contribute to the experience of the story of the band? This is like a really kind of like poverty level punk rock band, really desperate, really poor, very few connections, and they're just doing what they can. And so that kind of contributes in a way to the experience. And it's just the kind of feral nature of the band that makes this really kind of explode and survive the really kind of hard to listen to mix. Now, Rollins, about 20 years after recording this, he re-recorded a bunch of Black Flag songs with a bunch of different guest singers on this. I don't know if anybody remembers this. This was not a tribute. It's a tribute album of sorts, but it's a benefit album for the West Memphis 3. And he recorded it using his then version of the Rollins Band, which is a really good band. And in 2002, even short of doing a Pro Tools recording, the overall fidelity had just improved so much. And I'm sure that like Rollins probably had, a more healthy budget than was at the disposal of Black Flag. But just hearing these songs in this proper, like thundering, high impact, stereoized presentation, it really does kind of make you feel like you're hearing them properly for the first time. But what I like about this is you can smell the mustiness of the basement. You can smell the sweat. You can hear the desperation in it. And so Damaged by Black Flag doesn't sound good, but it's got so much spirit in it that it kind of survives that handicap.
Nice.
All right. Super.
Good stuff.
All righty. Martin, you're up.
Okay, I took an approach where I didn't want to pick albums that I just think are really, really good, but the production's not so great on. I wanted to pick albums that I think don't have great production in one direction or another, but I want the production to be that way. And if it was better produced, I might like it a little bit less. So these are albums that kind of have not great production for one reason or another, but I'm glad it's like that, and I like these albums. So I'm going to start with Golden Earring N.E.W.S. I did a whole podcast episode on this idea of albums that have big 80s production sounds and electronic drums. I think there's a synthesis of electronic and acoustic on here. But I'm glad it's done that way. And for some reason, this era of Golden Earring, they don't always do this. In fact, the previous few albums are not nearly as electronicized as this. They do have a live album with a studio track called Something Heavy Going Down, which is done this way as well. But it's just very big, big slap on the electronic bass drum. It's got big toms. It's very 80s in every way. There's 80s effects on the guitars as well, and I think it just fits the songs really well. It's if they did this album, these particular songs, if they did these songs in even a Golden Earring cut or a Long Blonde Animal or anything, Grab It for a Second manner, more conservative and analog, I don't think they would work as well. So I really like that, and I should have pulled it out. But the other one that really strikes me this way is the Highway Child EP, where they went full on after Storybook Heroes. They went full on 80s production values, and I think it absolutely works great. So that's my first choice, Golden Earring N.E.W.S. Actually, I just want to point out with Clear Night Moonlight on it, which is just an absolute masterpiece of a song. I mean, most of the songs on here are really cool, but that's really cool. And When the Lady Smiles was a big hit, and that's also a masterpiece. Just a really, really that one in particular is just such a beautifully written, well put together song with a lot of cool parts. So there you go, Golden Earring N.E.W.S. 1984.
All right, good pick. All right, the Elder of Rock.
All right, my first one's going to be a band from Ohio called Chastain, led by a guitar player named David Chastain. This is their second album. Their first one was called Mystery of Illusion. They were signed to Shrapnel, I believe, and so the first one was Mystery of Illusion, and that one had pretty good production, kind of like a little bit like Hotter Than Hell, like that, with a little bit doomy sort of sounding. But then their second album, Ruler of the Wasteland, comes out, and it's a great album, like great songs, but the production is just like pretty much guitar and drums. There's hardly any bass. The vocalist, Leather Leone, she sounds like she's singing in a tunnel, just heavy reverb on it. But so I just wish that maybe got a remix at some point, because the bass is like, you can hear it, but it doesn't have any bottom end. It's that tinny kind of kind of bass. The drums sound great, and of course the guitar tones are pretty good because of David Chastain and his band. But
there it is.
And I don't know who produced this album either. I forgot to look and see who produced that, because I know the first one was produced by a guy named Peter Marino, who was actually ended up being the vocalist for Cacophony. But I don't know who produced their second album. And their other albums after that sound pretty good, but this one was just wish it was a little bit mixed a little bit better. I don't know if they were rushed or whatever, but so that's my first one.
Nice.
Super. All right, Butch, everything up and running?
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. Nice to see you.
Good to see all of you. That reboot worked. Yeah.
Butch, that's rule number one. Reboot. Always rule number one.
Yeah. Always. Yeah.
Always.
I'm trying to think of which one to start with. I'll go with this one first then. This album, I mean, first of all, it's a love it or hate it kind of record. And there's a lot of clamor, especially since he found the tapes to get this remixed. Honestly, I don't know if I even care about a remix for this record. I just think that the production is not good on here. I don't know, it's all kind of murky and muddy, but I think it also is what makes it sound as evil as it does. I mean, I just think the record, the atmosphere of the record is partly created by that production on it. And I don't know what they remixed Forbidden, and I think that one ends up being a better record for it. This one, you could remix it and it'll be more clear, but I don't know that it fixes it, man. There's just something that's so like dark about this album across the board. I think it's an evil sounding record, and I know I'm not supposed to like the production on it because most people hate the production, or the common line is the production sucks but the record's good, or some people are like they can't even listen to it. But for me, I'll welcome it if they put out a box and they put out a remix. I'd like to check it out and see what they could do with it. But for my money, I mean, I think it's good as is. I don't even think that people talk about the rough mix sounding better than this. I don't even agree with that. I mean, I don't even notice that much of a difference, to be honest with you. It'd be nice to have the extra song, but I don't know. I just think it's good as is.
Who was the engineer on that? Do we know?
A Robin Black one?
Robin Black, yeah.
Well, do we know why it was so murky and crappy? And
probably because they were all on drugs.
That probably would do it.
And driving cars.
Well, let's do another line of cocaine. This sounds great.
I think
Bill Ward Gold.
I thought I heard about that one. Maybe it's another record, but I thought I heard about that one that something happened where they switched to speakers and testing out different speakers in the studio or something, so they couldn't quite get a.
Yeah, I heard something about monitors that were really strange.
That has a lot to do with
odd results. Yeah.
Because I know what Hotel California was recorded on these. I forget what they were recorded on, what monitors they used to mix it. Mm-hmm. But Steve Hoffman on his forum went and remastered it for, when they were doing gold CDs and all that. And he says the flat transfer, that really sounds horrible because of the speakers they mixed it on. And it all depends upon how it sounds when you're sitting there mixing it, and how they tweak it and how they EQ it. So.
By the way, you guys all know about the Hotter Than Hell remix on YouTube, right? The really meticulous, well laid out. He goes through everything he's done. He spent a ton of time on it, and he did an amazing remix of Hotter Than Hell. You can go hear that on YouTube.
Oh, I have to check that out.
So they take it through
Martin?
I don't know, but it was incredible, and it was the read about part was like 3 pages long. He just went through everything, and he added acoustic bonus tracks at the end and everything. He did a beautiful, beautiful job of it, and it does sound quite different.
I'd have to check it out. The whole thing about him, if the guy doesn't have the master tapes, then to me it's kind of like I'm a little bit wary of even. My friend was trying to turn me onto it. I'll have to check it out.
There's AI software that will go through. It's kind of like what they did with Get Back, where they took everything, they cleaned it all up. But
Grant,
you're muted.
You're gone. You're muted.
Oh, shit.
You got muted.
Yeah. I forget what company it is, but they reissue stuff like from the 50s and 60s and they remix it. They don't remix it, but they take it through AI software. Really great software that can take the vocals and isolate the vocal, isolate the bass, and then they can remix it. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Yeah,
I've heard about that too. Yeah.
But these guys that are doing it, they're just doing it at home. But it's just really have to go out. I'll put a link down to what those are. I can't remember off the top of my head though.
Yeah.
But
you read
Born
this
Again,
one.
I'll say those Born Again was that I don't mind the mix on that either. I've always not minded that production on that album. A lot of people didn't like it. I've never had a problem with it. I think it sounds like Black Sabbath, especially after the Dio albums. It's brought it back to got a little bit more doomy with that.
I like the way Gillan's vocals sound on it too. I don't know, whatever they did with those. I just think it sounds good. It just works for me. I don't think it sounds good, but it
technically isn't good, but it fits the album, I think, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was going to mention, I'm going to wait until the next round. Keith, why don't you go ahead and take the next one? What's your second pick?
Okay. I'll get another infamous bad production out of the way here. How about this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Well,
The lack of, well, I think this qualifies as bad production because they knowingly pulled that bass
that's
out
true.
of there.
That qualifies.
And it's always been a really tough listen for me because the way that sound just
I'll never forget me and my friends listening to that for the first time. I go, what's going on? What's missing? Oh, it's the bass. It's like
Kind of thin sounding.
I mean, the guitar tones are great and the drums are pretty, but like, where's the bass? It's like,
It's funny because my friends and I, when we got it, I honestly don't remember the issue with the bass coming up until years later when people were talking about it more. Like at the time, we didn't even, maybe I was just young and stupid at the time, but
me too.
Still don't mind it.
I don't remember complaining about it. It just sounded futuristic sounding, right? They're trying something a little different, and it deserves some of the credit for the Pantera drum sound later on, right?
Oh yeah.
I think the drums on that record sound pretty good, though. It just needs more low end, but whatever. It is. I'd like
to hear it with bass, but again, it's one of those ones that I think just because I'm so used to it and I enjoyed it for what it was, it has like a coldness to it or something that fits what they were doing at that time with those songs.
Yeah, but I do think it qualifies though because they kind of screwed it up.
I get it. Okay, they're mourning the loss of their bass player, but what a kick in the pants to Jason coming in.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, the Garage Days EP had him on it, and you could hear bass on that, and so then it's like, and there's all this BS thing about, well, there's the frequency thing, and it's like, you could hear bass on other Metallica records. Don't give me this thing of like, and Metallica records after that. Don't give me this BS of like, oh, frequencies, and we couldn't find the right frequency. I didn't, same producer as the first two Metallica records, so.
Well, and Master was halfway to that too. Master was trying something dry and mid-rangey as well, right? I mean, even Ride the Lightning was radical in its own way, and then Master was quite radical as well, and then this one is kind of the next logical step, right? But yeah, I think they're just kind of going for a technical futuristic. There's something like Korn or Mekong Delta about it or something, right? It's like or Voivodian, they're out there exploring and just being radical, and that's kind of the funny thing about Metallica's catalog is that they were always striving to try to do something different somewhere, right? And production was a big thing they toyed with all the time. It's like, let's do something nobody's ever done kind of thing. And I think they achieved that a lot of times along the way.
We get a lot of these remixes now. If there's anything that needs to be remixed, it would be Justice, I would say. Mm-hmm. I mean, geez, think about it. It would sell like crazy. I know.
Yeah, they said they say they're not going to do it. Ever,
was that an analog recording or digital? Was that digital or analog?
I would think it was.
Can't remember.
I don't know.
Was it analog? Well, it was around that time where everybody was embracing digital. So, yeah.
I know the next album was done on tape because of there's footage of the Black Album and they're using tape, and so I would think that maybe. They ain't gone digital yet, so
yeah. All right, cool. Keith, good pick. All right, Andy, what's your next one?
Okay, my next one is The Replacements' Tim. This is the first album they did for a major label. So punk rock band finally gets a budget and gets to record in a proper studio with a famous producer. And then the results are sound kind of tamped down, I would say. Now, when I first listened to this album, my favorite Replacements album is the one before it, Let It Be, which is a good recording, but it's very warts and all. It's very raw. You can hear the whole shambling mess of this, kind of loosely wrapped band. Lots of mistakes, lots of amp noise and clams played and stuff like that. But everything is right there in your face. It isn't particularly produced. When I first heard this, I didn't really think about the production. I don't remember being bothered by it, really. And then the more I read about it, I kept hearing people complain about it. and say, oh, it's, too 80s, too much reverb, this and that. And then that started to affect the way I looked at the the thing, like you kind of get it under your skin when you hear people say things enough. It's kind of like that Metallica thing with the bass. And, by comparison, it does sort of end up sounding kind of like a weak tea version of the old replacements. By the way, it was Tommy Ramone who produced this, oddly enough. He's the one who gave them their big corporate glossy production, strangely. But it isn't really like a big production so much as it just sounds like he threw a blanket over the band or something. There is kind of a haze of reverb, and it just doesn't jump out at you like the old stuff did. So anyway, like about a year and a half ago, I believe, everyone got their wish, and the Replacements issued a remix of Tim, helmed by Ed Stasium, which is ironic because Ed Stasium made some very 80s sounding records back in the 80s. But I got to say, his remix of this album is an absolute revelation. It gives you everything that you want. It sounds lively and grungy again. He unmuted a bunch of tracks that had been muted for some reason in the original mix with guitar ad-libs and backing vocals and kind of off the mic stuff that just makes it feel more loose and personal. So I'm sort of, now that I know that this is possible, I'm starting to think about other albums that I want to hear remixed. And I would love to hear a Born Again remix, I love that album, and I never cared. The production was never enough to bring it down for me. But now that I know that it's possible to make something like 40% better, I just feel greedy, and I want that. I thought the Live Evil remix was revelatory as well.
That was
awesome. Let's keep our fingers crossed. But that's my thing for the Replacements. And what else was I going to say about it? This is still like maybe their best batch of songs, and it still has that spirit of the band. And so the production never stopped me from liking it or loving it. But I now realize that I would probably love it more if it was recorded more like Let It Be or mixed more like Let It Be. And this new remix has proved that it can be better, and it is better, with some of the muck cleared out of the way and the guitars are panned out more in stereo and all that kind of good stuff.
Do you like the Pleased to Meet Me production better?
I do, actually. For some reason, this one, I do like Pleased to Meet Me. I don't think that one needs a remix as much as this one did.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe what's wrong with this. Ed Stasium said that he didn't really have to get rid of an egregious amount of reverb, which it does sound drier to me, though. I'm not sure what he had to do necessarily, but he did pan the instruments out, which is, for me, a really big deal. When albums are mixed kind of all pushed up in the middle, it just feels kind of claustrophobic. But I also have not lived with Pleased to Meet Me as long as I've been living with this one. So I don't have as intimate of a, kind of connection with that one.
Right.
So, wow, I'm just looking on Amazon, and evidently that was part of a box set. Is that right, Andee?
Yeah, and I wish they would just issue it without all that other stuff, because I don't really need all that. I just want the remix. I don't need all the extras, and there's a live show in there or something, and it's a big vinyl box and all the stuff, which I'm not that committed to the whole thing. But it'd be cool if they did like a scaled down issue.
Yeah, because it's not cheap. Must be out of print.
Ed Stasium, he produced Living Color, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He produced
the Reens,
the Ramones album,
I think.
The Ramones, Motorhead.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, Living Color Vivid is like the most 80s sounding mix of all time.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love it.
A
But
little bit.
All
there you
right.
go.
All right, excellent. All right, Martin, you're up.
Okay, I'm going to go with kind of an ironic choice here. I'm going to go with the Damned Music for Pleasure. So this is produced by Nick Mason from Pink Floyd. Famously, they wanted Syd Barrett, but they got Nick Mason, who was kind of disinterested and was always reading auto magazines and stuff in the background. And Damned fans don't like the production of this. They're not crazy about this album. There's my fuck off from Captain on here. That's a whole other story. I'm not Captain, sorry, Rat Scabies. But the funny thing is, and I took this out to show as well, because this is the one that comes next. And here you've got a very rough sounding record, which also would fit because I wouldn't want this any other way. But I love the fact that this is very high fidelity for the Damned at this point, and very behaved and very locked down, because the songs themselves are you could almost picture them as chaotic as the songs on Damned, Damned, Damned. But for whatever reason, whether it's Nick Mason's production or the way he had him perform it, I'm glad that the production on this is very conservative and straightforward. And a lot of Damned fans don't like it for that reason. But I'm so it's considered bad Damned production. And the band doesn't have fond memories of working with Nick. But I think I like this album immensely more than the debut. I like the songs more, and I like the production more. And then, like I say, it changes all again for Machine Gun Etiquette. But yeah, I wouldn't want this any other way. I don't want this sounding like the debut. So this is bad Damned production, according to the Damned fans. But I don't want a standard Damned production on this, because the songs are, Rat Scabies is still Rat on it. And there's enough chaos just in this sort of construction of the songs, and I don't want the chaos also in the production. So that's my second choice.
All right, Elder of Rock.
All right, so my next one's going to be Dokken Tooth and Nail. I love this album, but man, I just really hate some of especially the drums and the bass tones.
Oh, I love that sound.
I don't know. I don't have a problem with it.
I love that sound.
There's something about that. They sound boxy or something. I don't know.
It's screechy to me. It's Justice for All almost for me, that one.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. There's just something about. I mean, I love the album. I love the songs, but man, when I listen to it, I just sometimes what's going on here?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just something about it. Just it wasn't quite right for me. I don't know what it is, but yeah. I mean, I love the album.
It's worse later into the '80s, so I'll take it.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's my next.
All right.
All right, Butch.
All right. Let's get to this one. This, by the way, is my favorite studio record by this band, but this is a classic case of, like, we were talking about Kiss earlier, and actually I had Hotter Than Hell on my list, and I feel the same way about the first three Kiss albums. I think the productions don't live up to how the band sounded live. The best versions of all those songs are on Kiss Alive. Well, I think the same goes with,
that's
this
bad.
record. It's packed with some of the best material the band ever did. Like, I love this record. But coming off that first record, and this is where I think coming into the band, in my early, in the 80s, in my early teens, instead of having followed from the beginning, like, this is one of those records, like, if I'd have bought the first record, which has that raw, like, almost like punk, like, it's kind of heavy, like, energy on it, and then I bought this, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, it's just so, like, light in a way, like, just in terms of there's not a lot of oomph. And then Werman snuck the piano in on there, and like the version of I Want You to Want Me on here is so, like, limp compared to the live one. And these songs, but like, Hello There, Big Eyes, Downed, I Want You to Want Me, freaking Clock Strikes 10, Southern Girls, one of the greatest power pop songs of all time, Come On, Come On. It's So Good to See You. I can't imagine hearing it another way, although I can, because most of us have heard the Steve Albini one, which I also think is great, but I still love this. I just think it could have sounded a lot better and done the band a lot more good if it had more of that production of the first record or more of what Werman did on Heaven Tonight with it. I just think of the early records,
I don't like that one sound wise, or Heaven Tonight or Dream Police. And I think George Martin did a good job on the next one. I like the Todd Rundgren one. I like the Jack Douglas one, the first one, right? I think it's Jack Douglas. So I like
standing on
on any of those three.
Oh my God, I can barely sit through this episode. You guys are making me uncomfortable.
Grant's gonna have a coronary.
I'm gonna have a freaking heart attack.
No, it's like what he did.
Heaven Tonight your favorite, Grant?
Yeah, I think Tom Worman's brilliant.
Yeah,
he knew exactly what to do.
I mean, not on those. Yeah, I don't know if he was.
All right. Well, Jack. Here we go. I'm going to get all worked up. We had Jack Douglas back for Standing on the Edge, but he failed. That's a good record in there somewhere. But
here's the thing. I mean, here's the thing, Grant. I mean, maybe Werman knew what he was doing, but the record didn't do anything for them at the time it came out. So
they didn't do anything until Budokan. So there you go.
But I'm saying for all that they did to try to get them to have like a hit, it didn't really do much better than the first one. I mean, I still like the record for what it is, for sure.
Well, who else was doing what they were doing then, though?
Well, it comes down to the writing with that, though. I mean, I still think this could have been a better record if it had the same production of the first one.
Some kind of different thing. Yeah,
I wouldn't change anything about it.
It's like scaling back. It's almost like you're only a step away from they might as well have been playing on acoustics at times.
Oh my God. Where's the delete?
It's not that extreme, but I'm just saying.
All right, we have to move on. I can't handle it.
Heavier.
All right, I'm done with you, Butch.
Well, for the record, we were ticked off as kids when that came out.
I wasn't. I was ticked off when All Shook Up came out because when I heard that, I went, something's wrong because the songwriting wasn't up to snuff. I didn't have any problem with the production. So you guys are deaf.
It's my favorite one.
Well, that's when Rick Nielsen was running out of songs. I like it now, but they were never.
Yeah, I like it now, but at the time, it was like
there was something missing.
It was, yeah.
And to me, that's the last.
I didn't get it then. I didn't get it then. I get it now, but I didn't get it then because
I like what George Martin did, but I just don't think the songs are totally worked out. Or maybe it needed more of the production from In Color to make them work better. But I think All Shook Up is the last album where I think we really had Rick Nielsen's real guitar sound. Because after that, we had Rick Nielsen never sounding like Rick Nielsen again. You know, at least when we had Werman in the seat, Cheap Trick sounded like Cheap Trick. You listen to Cheap Trick live, it sounds like them. You know, just sounds like they're in the studio. You know, yeah, there's some flourishes. We've got strings on Dream Police, but it's all well done. You know, there's something magical about those records. Why does everybody say that those records, the first four, are like magic?
Because the best songs are on them.
Well, that's part of it. Well, he ran out of songs.
But
I'm just
he
saying,
wrote all that shit before they were even signed. You're only 25 once, ladies and gentlemen. Just keep that in mind. Anyway, I'm done talking Cheap Trick because I'm going to have to go to the hospital. Keith, calm me down.
I hope Keith has a Cheap Trick record.
You have Cheap Trick? I'm just going to boot you right off the panel.
I wouldn't do that to you because I'm in your corner with that.
Okay, I like you. Can I make you big?
I'm surrounded.
In Color's a classic. Perfect record.
It is.
It is, but I just...
Well, then quit bitching about it. All right, go ahead, Keith.
I'm not.
Okay, I'm going to swing in a different direction here now. I was a hard rocker in the 70s. I started the 80s with I was all about the new wave of British heavy metal. But as the years went on, I was getting kind of bored with it. I really didn't like the whole Metallica and thrashy thing. That really wasn't my thing. It took me a long time to start getting into that. And I didn't really like the opposite spectrum of the hard music. It was the glossy what eventually would become hair bands. So I needed something else to do, and I kind of went into the underground. And I had always liked the more melodic punk and the new wave, and then I jumped into some of the darker stuff, and this record was big for me,
Yeah.
but it sounds like crap. It is a mud fest, and
That's quite a record.
and they use the drum machines, and this is 85. um it wasn't perfected. The lead track, Black Planet, was all over 120 minutes for quite a long time, and I always liked this, but it can be a hard listen because it's just so thick to get through all of it. So that would be
That's a good.
my next
That's a
one.
good pick.
Sisters of Mercy, first and last and always.
Butch, I'm just giving you crap. I love you. You know that.
I don't. It's all good. I love it.
I'm just so
It's
sensitive.
fire.
I'm so sensitive about Cheap Trick.
Not Cheap Trick, man.
I am very sensitive. Anyway, Andy, what's your next one?
All right, Susie and the Banshees, Superstition, produced by Stephen Haig. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
He was famous for producing Pet Shop Boys. He also did a Public Image Limited record that I love called 9. And he would go on to do a New Order record. And he's done a lot of stuff. But he's one of these guys where when he gets his hands on a band, he kind of takes over the whole vision. And, you know, some producers would just replace the band and keep the singer and just bring in their ringers and just to make it sound the way they wanted. And in the 80s, you had a lot of producers like that, your Trevor Horns and your Bill Laswells and people like that. But I love this album. It's really gauzy and spacious and ethereal, and they kind of take on a more grown-up kind of image. Susie's not ratting her hair out anymore. She looks kind of like a silent film star or something. And the thing is that, well, just to describe the production, it's sort of his productions, he sort of makes everything sound vaguely synthetic. It all sounds like it's encased in lucite or something. There's no space. It's all kind of filled in with atmospherics and electronics. He always makes the drums sound like a drum machine, whether it is or not. There's always this pinched kind of compressed snare. And there are songs on here where if you just take the lead vocal off, you would have no idea who the band is because there's kind of programmed this and that, and there's no real bass. And but, you know, they had maybe their biggest hit. I actually am not sure, but Kiss Them For Me is just an immortal pop classic. And that just sounds like the producer's tune. It sounds like he made that track out of loops and, you know, programming and sound design. And there's this amazing vocal from Susie on it, and it's just hooks from start to finish. I think this album is gorgeous. I mean, it doesn't sound like really anything even remotely like the spiky early kind of post-punk band that the Banshees were. So he kind of masks the band, and in some cases he replaces the band, sounds to me like. A little trivia note, Nigel Godrich was one of the assistant engineers on this. What did I want to say about this album aside from all that? Some of the more spooky atmospheric songs are just gorgeous. Drifter, Little Sister, the song called Softly. They're just these really enveloping kind of like heartbreaking mood pieces. And then you just have these gorgeous pop songs like Shadow Time, and just sounds like a more grown-up band. I love every song on this. Apparently, the experience did not sit well with Susie herself, who got a bad taste in her mouth about recording with computers. because he used computers a lot. And but Steve Severin said that he loved it because the producer just made them keep honing the songs until they were really, really strong. And there definitely is no lack of strong songs on here. When I think about the Public Image record that he did, this is 1990. So in 1990, if you're a really overproduced album, you sound like the worst of the 80s, basically. The Pill record that he did is also kind of like that, but you hear John Lydon is almost, his vocal performance is almost just fighting against this slickness. He's trying to be as cantankerous as he can to break out of this like morass of this really kind of slick, polite sound. Whereas Susie just becomes really ethereal and beautiful and sings better than she ever sang before. In the early Banshees records, I would describe her relationship with pitch as being a little casual at times. But she really sings beautifully on this. And there are times where I don't recognize it as being the Banshees at all, and I don't particularly care. I'm glad they did one album like this. Glad they're not all like this. But there you go. This is their second to last album. I think it's their 10th album, Superstition.
Andee, did you dig Peep Show?
Yes and no. I didn't think it was nearly as strong as this song-wise, but the song Peekaboo on that album is another just producer's creation. It doesn't particularly sound like a band. It sounds like it was pieced together with really weird ingredients.
What is it, like a backwards accordion or something? I don't know what they did.
There's backwards drums, there's accordion, and it's just genius. I mean,
it's genius.
It sounds like a Pro Tools production. So if you get results that good, like I don't care what tools you use, I don't care how you got there, I'm in favor of it. But then I think that some of the other songs on that album end up sounding really kind of boring in comparison, because that's such a lively, like surprising sounding song. But I think this is a way better album than Peep Show.
There you go. Cool.
How do you line that up with Tinderbox, Andee?
Tinderbox I put above this. I love actually that period where they're doing prettier, more kind of stately sounding things. The Covers album was great. I think Tinderbox is, I think it's underrated. I think the guitar player on that album, nobody ever talks about him. His name's John Valentine Carruthers. Yeah. He's amazing. Nobody ever talks about him. They had like all these guys named John playing guitar. They had John McKay, John McGeoch, John Valentine Carruthers, and now John Klein on this. They're all great guitar players. And Robert Smith is the only one who is not named John. But yeah, I mean, for me, the Juju Kaleidoscope is at the top. And then I put Tinderbox right under those two.
Cool. All right, Martin, you're up.
Okay, my last choice I think is perfect for this, or at least the way I wanted to attack this, and that is Black Sabbath, Never Say Die. What I like about this album, I wanted to do, I might still do it, a podcast episode of History in 5 Songs, Mac Productions, Not by Mac. And I think this is perfect for that. This is self-produced. It's made in Toronto. It sounds interchanged. To me, this sounds like a cross between Queen Hot Space, Led Zeppelin Houses of the Holy, and Sweet Give Us a Wink. Hot Space is Mac, but the Sweet album was made at Musicland, and of course the House of the Holy has nothing to do with Mac. But I think the production is one of the stars on this album. This is the first. Sabbath has had really interesting productions along the way, but the last radical production was Master of Reality, and this is radical. And I think it's like I say, one of the stars. It's certainly a distraction. And it just sounds to me on this, songs like Hard Road with that big, wide panoramic shuffle field and shock waves. It sounds like Bill Ward is drumming and is his arms are like 10 feet long, and he's just bashing these cymbals all over the place. Big cavernous slap to the bass drum. Very dirty drum sound, a dirty guitar sound as well. Even the keyboards, when they're in there, they're a little bit dirty, Don Airy. So I think this album, I wouldn't want them to have made this album with a pristine technical ecstasy sound. I think, like I say, the production is one of the stars. It adds to the atmosphere of it, the white knuckle, feel of the band at this time, the weirdness of the band with the strange, beat on Johnny Blade, and you've got the krautrock on there with Breakout and Air Dance and Swinging the Chain with the crazy new riff that comes in out of nowhere at the end, and Bill singing it, and it's Never Say Die. You get this punk song to kick things off, right? Just big slashing angular chords, and so I just love the Macness of the whole thing, which I'm sure was a total accident. There's no way this production was deliberate. I think they were so cold in Toronto making this record. That's what they complain about. It was just freezing, putting this thing together, and the band was in bad shape, and Ozzy was in. I think they recorded it. Max Webster was recording an album at the same time. I think they were doing Mutiny Up My Sleeve in the same studio. But the coldness was the theater that they did all the rehearsing and stuff in to get things ready, and then they went into Sounds Interchange, I think it was called. But so to fit the parameters of what I wanted for this show is like it's got bad production, but it actually helps the album, and I wouldn't want it any other ways. There you go. Never Say Die.
There you go.
That's
all
good.
right. The Elder of Rock, you're up.
All right. This is kind of echoing Martin's sentiments about an album. I've always liked this album, but the production, when I first heard it, was a little weird. I'm talking about Megadeth's first album, Killing Is My Business, but Business Is Good. When I was, expecting what I was expecting from an ex-member of Metallica on their first album. I was expecting to, obviously to sound like Metallica. This didn't. And, the guitars are a little like thin, kind of screechy sounding, kind of punk rock sounding. The drums are kind of a little dry and just, I don't know. But I've always liked, but it does add to the charm of the album, and I like it. But it's not obviously what they ended up sounding like later. Also know late now that a lot of the budget for this album went to drugs, so that's partially why it sounds like the way it does. So they used a lot of the money on drugs and very little on productions. But I still like it. It's still one of my favorites of theirs. Like they do a version of, if you have the version with the boots on it, they did a re-recording of that for a movie called Dudes, which sounds a lot better. You can hear a good production on that. Maybe what the album would have sounded like. So, but yeah, so Megadeth, Killing Is My Business.
All right, cool. All right, Butch, what you got?
All right, my last one. This was a transition record for this band. And I love this record. I love the songs on it. But by 1977, Casablanca is like scratching their heads. The band's got a lot of hype around it, but the first two records are really duds in terms of sales. The productions on those records, while not the greatest, I still think serve the records for what they are. I mean, Derek Lawrence and Big Jim Sullivan did what they could with them. I think they still sound pretty good for a band's first couple albums. They're heavy. The problem with this record for me, I can't even put my finger on it completely. I just think it sounds, first of all, I think it sounds rushed. And it never sounds like fully together. Like with this record, I think some of the songs, by the time we get to this one, like, first of all, the heavier stuff doesn't sound as heavy as it did on the first two records. And then the songs that should be more lush, for lack of a better word, or should have a bigger production, like they did with Eddie Leonetti with White Hot. Songs like Telephone Exchange and That Magic Touch and You're Not Fooling Me, like have like that Queen kind of vibe to them, but don't sound as good. Like they could have done with having a Roy Thomas Baker production on it, like that, like a Queen kind of production on this record. I think would have served them better. Instead, it's kind of like Eddie Kramer to me just doesn't. I don't know. It's too scaled back. I think from too raw. I think maybe like I like Eddie on Rock and Roll Over. I like what he did with Hendrix and Zeppelin and some of the stuff that he did. I don't really like his production on here. The drums sound funky to me. They sound big in a way, but they also sound like they're down the hall, like too echoey.
They sound like this. They sound like this. That's noisy as hell, that album, right?
Yeah, it's wonky sounding. Like it just doesn't sound like.
I love it though.
It sounds like instead
I
of
absolutely love that sound. That was my first Angel record. I know what you're saying, but I don't know. I love the sound of that record.
I don't have a
I love
problem.
the sound of the first two. The first two sound like the best Deep Purple production you could possibly get. They sound as good as Your Eye Heap Look at Yourself. I just love that big, bassy, muscular, the way they get the keyboards in on the first two albums.
Yeah, I just think everything is balanced more on the first two, and then on the two that the two that follow. This one, it just sounds like it never sounds like everything like kind of like sits in together. Like you want to get everything to sit in, where it sounds like it fits, and at times like something will be too loud. The keys will get louder, and I don't know. Like a song like Just a Dream, like for as like spacey and kind of lush as it is, everything on here should sound, the heavier stuff I think should sound heavier, and the lush stuff should sound lusher. And it's like in this middle kind of like mush. Butch Jones would kill me because he thinks this is actually their heaviest record, and I don't.
Did you ever hear the Rock Candy version of that?
I had the Rock Candy versions, on CD.
I think it sounds just a little fuller. You think it sounds a little bit better on the Rock Candy?
I've got the BGO.
Yeah. I think the remasters are pretty good for them. I don't notice like a ton of difference overall. Like maybe if they remixed it, which is never going to happen, but I don't know. It is for what it is, though. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands of all time, so I still love every song. Even that Magic Touch, I still love, and that song's like how they picked that as a single is beyond me. But this just should have done. It should have sounded better, and I don't know that it would have helped them. But it doesn't sound like a band that's ready to be like these songs don't sound like if you listen to songs that hit the radio that were hits, it doesn't have the same. I don't think it's as pro sounding, and I hate to say that about Eddie Kramer. It sounds more like undercooked to me and out of whack.
All right, cool. There you go. There you go, people. It's been a great discussion. I'm calmed down now.
Any honorable mentions?
If you have one, make it quick.
I was gonna say Carnival of Souls by Kiss. That's just kind of dry sounding, and also Stay Hungry by Twisted Sister. I like the songs. I think that's a Tom Werman thing too. So
I had this out, but it doesn't fit my thing because basically I would have wanted this to sound better. I mean, I like it, but it doesn't fit my rule. And I also thought of the Ram Jam album, Portrait of the Artist.
Yeah, that record doesn't sound good at all.
Yeah, but still, I kind of like it the way it is too, especially Gone Wild and that soul and the soloing in there, and the cannoning, the dirty drum sound. That's another. I've got to write that one down too because that's another one I might stick in this Mac episode. So yeah, Ram Jam, and then I thought Flick of the Switch, also AC/DC. Which also doesn't really fit because I don't think it has bad production. Everybody kind of does, and I like the production on it. But yeah, I guess it's like The Damned, where people not like The Damned, but it's one where people think the production is bad, and the production never bothered me on it until people started talking about it. And now, like Andy says, I can't unhear that. Right? I can't unhear the complaints anymore. So that's all I have.
An honorable for me is Stars Attention Shoppers. I mean that record is it's too slick sounding. I think the songs are sound on there for the most part, but it just doesn't have enough oomph to it like the first two records did.
Well, even worse, Coliseum Rock, because it's got the heavy songs and it's produced like Attention Shoppers, right? Yeah.
So there's that too. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, everybody out.
Wrap her up.
Everybody done? All right, wrap this dog up. I want to thank the panel tonight: Keith, Andee, Butch, the Elder of Rock, and Martin, myself. We will be back. I don't know when. Well, there's more coming, so be patient. If you'd like to be on these panels, we'd love to have you. We have a Ko-fi, buy us a pint or a cup of coffee. We would most appreciate that. We also have a Patreon. We throw up the shows early. Interaction there to galore. We'd love to have you. Be part of the club, ladies and gentlemen. Also, we'll take donations too. We just like to talk music on the Contrarians. Hopefully, there is something on here that you might want to be turned on enough to check out. That's really the goal. So let us know down in the comments what albums you think sound horrible, bad productions, but you love that record. All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, guys. Yep.